Hi everyone. Let's wait another minute before we start. I'm Nicholas. Nice to meet you all. Just let's wait another few minutes to have everyone joining us. Okay, let's start. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. I'm Nicholas Olivan. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Conduktor. So first of all, I'm really thrilled to have you all. I want to personally thank you for join us for this webinar. Honestly, it's really good. It's great for me to see you guys. I think I'm very thankful to have you guys as customers. Your feedback has always been tremendously important. I think that's what has always made Conduktor is your feedback has helped us grow, improve our product, and that's kind of what's coming up with this webinar. Over the years, our objective and our mission has always been to help you to work more efficiently with data streaming. And as you know, the industry's been evolving, so does our products. And so that's why we're announcing by the end of 2025, Conduktor Desktop will be officially sunsetting. So that's why I'm having here James, our product director, and Boya, our renewal account manager, joining us to help you guys understand how to transit to our new products. So during this webinar, we'll be covering this new product Scale, the features, and how to easily migrate from desktop to Scale and benefit from all those new features that will help you and your team work more efficiently with streaming. So as I said, thank you to all of you for joining us. I will now give the stage to James, our product director, and Poya, our renewal account manager, that will help you go through that migration process and go through the features and all the benefit of Scale.
Thanks, Nico. Appreciate it. And thank you all again. Excited to be here. So let's start talking about what actually Conduktor Scale product is, right? So as Nico mentioned, the product has evolved, the industry has evolved, and so we came up with the Conduktor Scale product. It's a centralized web-based platform. It's built for modern data streaming, delivering the security, the speed, and the performance your organizations require and need. And it helps your team stay ahead. With that being said, this is just one piece of our platform. It was the first piece that evolved out of our desktop tool as we grew and evolved. We also have two other pillars at the moment, one called Shield and one called Exchange. Today, obviously, the focus is Scale. We're going to talk about what it is and how you can migrate over. But there's much more of an offering that we provide through Shield and Exchange, and even more products coming out in the next couple of months. And if you have interest, happy to share those details with you and the use cases related to those and what value it brings to your organization. But we'll leave that for another time. So to dive into Scale and what it actually is, it's basically more power and less complexity. As we mentioned, it's web-based. And big key item here, it's centrally managed, right? This is huge for your organizations, and for your Kafka journey to scale, our product needs to scale with that. So one of the big items, some of the big items that it brings is real-time monitoring and alerting, right? It's not just sitting on a desktop, and if you close that desktop, no one knows what's going on until they open it. Now it's enterprise ready, and alerts can be sent out. It also enables end users with self-service. And of course, for like any other enterprise tool, we support SSO with LDAP and OIDC. Some of the other features that we enable are SQL and Kafka. We have obviously a ton of deep integrations. Some of those are through AWS, Confluent, and Avian. And then in our Scale Plus product, we have something called Chargeback. And this allows and enables organizations to understand, hey, where's the usage going on in our Kafka environment, and where are the costs being really going, right? Is there a noisy neighbor? With that being said, there's a ton of features. We're just going to touch on a few. And one thing we definitely want to call out is, as you all know, in our daily lives, in our corporate lives, security is of the utmost importance. And to help organizations to ensure the compliance both internally with the policies they have, as well as externally with the regulations like HIPAA and GDPR, our tool will help you adhere to those. And as I mentioned, there's a ton of benefits that come along from moving from desktop to scale, from further enriching features to covering areas that weren't even covered. And as an example, we have data security, bank grade security with field level data masking and audit logging, right? There's also audit trail, which many of our organizations require as you move to an enterprise tool. So full traceability of Kafka operations and the access and the data access related to that. And then obviously what always comes up and is very important is performance, right? This tool is optimized for large Kafka clusters and deep cloud integrations like AWS and Confluent. Now, this is not everything. This is just some items. We also release on a monthly basis. So we're always further enriching our Scale product and our other products as well. Now that you know a little bit about what Scale is, let's talk a little bit about the migration. We've had many customers already take this journey with us as Scale has been out there. One example is Virgin Australia. We've also had Dick's Sporting Goods and many others who've already made this seamless transition, and we hope to help you making your transition. Now, we're excited to announce not only, yes, we are sunsetting the tool, but we're also offering an incentive. And we're really excited to offer an early bird discount starting today and going up through March 31st. For those folks going from desktop to Scale, you get immediate access to the tool so you can start testing it out, exploring, but there's no payment due until your actual contract renewal. So what that means is you can have up to a 10% discount as a thank you to your loyalty, and it can equate basically to 14 months for the price of only 12. And we're happy to help you. I'm sure you've already seen marketing's outreach, maybe my outreach, bringing this to any desktop customers. So feel free to engage with us and we can start the discussions and planning. Now, with that being said, we know many of you folks on here have different roles. So please don't be intimidated. There's a lot of really good information that James is about to share around the transition, and good for you to know whether you're handing off to another group or want to educate other folks. So we're going to take a few minutes. Bear with us. If you're not the folks who might manage this, it's also good for you to know. That being said, I'll hand over to James to walk you through the architecture and transition.
Thank you. Thank you, Bora. All right, so let's talk about what that migration looks like. And before you get started, there's a couple of really important things to understand. So let's look at the fundamentals. The primary point is that the new Conduktor is no longer installed on a user's individual machine. So instead, like the picture on the right, it's deployed centrally on a server, such as a container service like ECS or EKS, and that will provide you multi-user access within one environment. Now, that's advantageous for a number of reasons. Just to name a few of those, that centralized approach means that you only have a single deployment to patch and upgrade. At the same time, you're gaining watchtower-like visibility of your users' activities and also their data access. So from a compliance perspective, this is much more advantageous. You're getting that much more straightforward and holistic governance of how people are interacting with your streaming ecosystem. The other thing is you'll benefit from collaborative features that weren't possible on a native desktop application before. For example, being able to share a URL, right? Share a URL, put it in a Jira ticket when you're experiencing an incident. share different views, different consumer filters that might be broadly applicable for your organization, and also introduce things like tagging on your resources, metadata tagging that gives more business context to those Kafka resources. So now that we understand that, I want to have a quick look at the deployment architecture. So at the heart of a scale deployment, there are two Docker images. Conduktor console is our core image for the platform. That provides you the user interface, the API, and all of those core features for kind of managing your resources. At the same time, we have Conduktor Cortex. This provides all of the monitoring and the alerting capabilities. Like Priya mentioned earlier, that 24/7 monitoring of your Kafka ecosystem that wasn't possible on a desktop application before, and also external integrations with other observability platforms, Grafana, for example. So both of those images are deployed together to provide this complete solution for Kafka management and observability of your ecosystem. We've touched upon the fact that we already provide SSO through OpenID and LDAP as well, so providing integrations for all of those common identity providers like Auth0, Okta, Keycloak, etc. And then we're also providing new integrations for your notifications and alerts through common tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, webhooks as well, to enable customized workflows. Of course, with this deployment, it does bring some new dependencies. So I'll quickly touch on those. Number one is the Postgres database. What is this used for? Well, this is used to store all of that platform configuration and metadata that comes with the new look Conduktor. So your roles, your permissions, your user accounts. Additionally, if you want to benefit from all that historical metrics, that historical time series data, then we recommend you use an object storage such as AWS3 or Azure Blob Storage. So now that we understand the overall architecture, what do your deployment options look like? And although deploying Conduktor in a server environment might seem complex at first, we've streamlined the process to make it really straightforward. So we provide things like Helm charts for deploying on Kubernetes. This is the most common path and probably the most recommended path from Conduktor's side. We also provide CloudFormation if you're much more familiar with AWS services. And perhaps the easiest way to deploy a completely new instance of Conduktor is on the AWS Marketplace. So if you go to the Marketplace listings, you'll be able to deploy Conduktor with all of the dependencies in just a few clicks. All of these different options are listed on the deployment options page of our documentation. Right, so once you actually have your environment up and running, things should look quite familiar. And that's why I've picked out this screen here, which hopefully everyone is super familiar with. If you're a big Conduktor Desktop fan, then you'll of course seen this before. Essentially, you want to copy your cluster credentials and move them into the cluster screen within the new look Conduktor. So this ensures you have a fairly seamless transition and you can get quickly up and running very quickly. But one fundamental difference here is because the new look Conduktor has its own role-based access control permission model, you only need to configure your cluster once, right, in your one server deployment. And when you provide that enough privileges, you can then control access for specific users and groups to resources through the RBAC model. This is all baked with a certificate management store as well, which makes it much easier to kind of upload and manage your certificates if you are using MTLS, for example. The other thing which I've somewhat touched upon is, if you prefer an infrastructure as code approach, then all of this, your cluster configuration, your deployment can be added infrastructure as code. We provide a CLI, and all of this can be configured at deployment time as well. And lastly, once you have your clusters configured and your deployment up and running, you're essentially ready to invite your team. So you can do this in multiple ways. You can add a local user, or we can integrate with your existing identity provider. For any of those users or groups that you specify in your installation, you then use that RBAC model to assign permissions. So what you're seeing here on the right is an example of a specific user where just through pointing and clicking, you're able to determine what that user or that group should have access to at a sort of Kafka resource level. And that's it. So that would get you up and running. I think I'm going to hand it back over to Poria now, who's going to go through a couple of Q&A and help us wrap up.
Thanks, James. So now that I have a better idea of what Scale is and how you might migrate over, we're just going to touch on a couple of common questions that's come up from other customers who've already done the migration and have brought these up. So what does this mean for your desktop subscription? Well, as Nico mentioned in the beginning, all current desktop subscriptions will end by end of year 2025. As we mentioned, we're happy to work with you on that transition and help you migrate over. Regarding version and deployment model, do we support Conduktor's core functionality supports all versions of Kafka, both MSPs and self-hosted. And how long does it take to migrate? Now this varies based on the customers and the resources available, but we see it done all the time in just a few days. And again, we're here to happy and help you guys along that journey. And then can you try it? As I mentioned earlier, you can already start immediately using Scale in our community version to test it out, to explore it. So feel free to download and start using it. Again, if any questions that we don't cover today in this presentation, if we see them in the chat, we will happily reach out after. So don't feel that this is the end all be all. And now let me take a look. I didn't see too many questions in here yet.
There was one potentially that I think I can answer so immediately. So I think somebody was asking about Datadog, observability with Datadog. I think that was Leroy. Yeah, look, we're providing like a Prometheus endpoint within the deployment. So if you want to scrape those metrics into your existing observability tool, then that's pretty flexible in terms of where you can take that data. So that should work out of the box for you.
Thanks, James. I also see a question about the licensing model. Our pricing is totally transparent on our website for a Scale product. So you can see it there. And as I mentioned earlier, we have an exclusive early bird discount that we're offering, and happy to walk any customer through that. Feel free to reach out to me or Anna on the EMEA side, or anyone from the account team for that matter. And again, just to summarize the next steps for the upgrade of Conduktor Scale, we have the early bird until March 31st. You can access it, the free version now, to test out, ask any questions you might have of us. So feel free to reach out to anyone. There's a QR code on this slide. We'll also be sending this recording out to all the folks who've registered and to all desktop customers who haven't already engaged and planned on migrating. So feel free to view that and bring us any questions you might have. That's it from my side. James, anything else on yours?
So a couple of more questions, I suppose, maybe that are just coming in. So Francis, you're asking about, you're working as a freelancer for different clients and you want to understand how you can use Conduktor to connect to different clusters. Yeah, I think this is something maybe it's worth us following up with you directly to understand how that looks. Obviously, the whole advantage of a server deployment means you need to be in an environment where you can connect to those clusters. If that means you're working with lots of different customer environments, then that obviously might be something that is more difficult, but it depends on whether those clusters are public, whether they're private. And so perhaps we can follow up with you directly on that one to recommend the best path. Maybe a question from that you might be able to help with, Pariah. My team's membership expires on the 28th of April. Does that mean we need to migrate before that date or by the end of 2025?
So we want to work with you. We appreciate the loyalty and the investment you've made. So please reach out to your account team and we'll find that right sweet spot. I mean, ideally, at renewal time is when you transition over, but if the migration needs to bleed over, that's fine, as long as everyone migrates over by the end of 2025. But happy to work with each customer to find where that sweet spot is and the right timing is, as long as it's by the end of the year. I think there's one more question on the migration.
Yes, indeed. So if I migrate from desktop to scale, will I still have personal use just for me for free? For example, limited to 10 topics, see the different messages, push my schema registry on the desktop version. Yeah, so absolutely. If you favor developing in localhost and you just want to run Scale on your machine locally, you are of course able to do that. It doesn't have to be deployed in a server environment. Of course, that is where you will get all of the primary benefits. But of course, if you're working with clusters locally, then you can have an instance of Scale. We do have actually a Docker quick start on our documentation, which within about one command you could have up and running, relatively straightforward as well.
I see a question about what is the limit of the free version. There's quite a few limits to that free version, but we have plenty of folks on it who it helps, who might not be ready in their maturity of Kafka to move over to the Scale. So if you go to, I think it's Conduktor, we have a desktop page which lays out the differences. And happy to follow up with you, Peter, on that.
Great. And another question about performance. So with desktop users, they're able to work and connect on Kafka cluster from their local machine. Using Scale, it's mandatory to connect first on a central place. What about performance, for instance? So I think performance in general, we can say that we're optimized on Scale compared to Conduktor Desktop. Advantage being, particularly for large environments, we periodically snapshot the metadata so that all of the list screens, your topics, your subjects, Kafka Connect, etc., they essentially load with zero load time because of that periodic process that's running in the background. Of course, we do recommend that the console is deployed close to your Kafka cluster as well, because that's another thing that can impact the performance. But in general, you're going to have an optimized experience in Conduktor Scale, Raphael. Okay.
And I see another question on, is Conduktor console still available? It is not, but good news is our Conduktor console is actually our new Scale product. So it's equivalent. It just matured more. We had a naming change in our products. So console equals Scale, basically, Scale standard.
Yeah, that's right. I would say you could consider it, the new version of Conduktor, what was previously Conduktor console, but enhanced with new functionality, particularly around self-service. So if you are looking for a framework where you can provide more developer autonomy in terms of like resource configuration workflows, there is obviously a GitOps framework there within Scale as well that previously we were just talking about a user interface. So there's lots more there than just console. It shouldn't be a 1-1, but yeah, hopefully that provides a bit of context.
Yeah, sorry, James. I was coming more from a contractual side of things, as that's my side of the house. And just to that point, as James mentioned, the products and I mentioned before, the products continue to be enriched. We do monthly releases, so there will continually be new features and value coming to you through Scale and our other products.
Great. Okay. And at the moment, we don't offer Scale as a SaaS solution, Raphael. It is something that is self-hosted, and we try to make that as straightforward as possible. Of course, the advantage of that means all of the data stays in your own environment rather than in our own cloud. So that is something that most of our customers find desirable. So yeah.
We'll go through one or two more. I see a couple folks typing, and then we'll probably close out. I think we've covered them all.
Yes. So maybe one. Looks like they're still coming in. We've got a few minutes, so let's do our best to answer them. So Sylvester, can you describe the architecture behind a purchase with AWS Marketplace? Yes, I can do my best for that. So essentially, when you deploy on the AWS Marketplace, it deploys using CloudFormation templates that will also deploy an RDS instance along with the Conduktor console, Docker image. So all of the dependencies required configure all of the environment variables for you. That kind of takes that out of your hands, and within about I think about 10-15 minutes, when all of those services are up on AWS, you'll be provided the host so that you can access your instance just within your VPC. The thing I would add is that will by default deploy a community instance of Scale. If you do have a license, if you're an enterprise customer, then all you would need to do is add your enterprise license as an environment variable. That will be proposed to you when you click through the CloudFormation flow, and you'll be up and running. And then last one about webhook enabled for triggering the incidents. Yes, this is actually a capability in our latest release, actually released today. So all of our monitoring and alerting now provides a webhook destination, which you can customize so that you can send any alerts or notifications to an endpoint that you then want to build your own custom workflow.
All right. Well, I think we've answered them all. If there's, we'll give one more minute for any last minute questions. And again, we will be reaching out to anyone who's registered and to all existing desktop customers to begin a conversation around transitioning and helping you guys understand how to plan for it. That being said, we really appreciate everyone's time, appreciate the loyalty and coming along this journey with us. We look forward to working with you and hearing from you and bringing you over to Scale. Thanks, James. Thanks, Nico. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.